Well, hey everybody, happy Wednesday. It is Wes McDonald, and as always, I am here with my good friend Kenneth Edmonds. How are you, Ken?
I am good. My house remodel is 99.9% complete. I got a little trim to tack down today, and then I'll be done. So that's good.
I noticed
I've
that.
actually been here for a couple 3 weeks in a row, which has given me some time to catch up on things. That's good. How are things with you? I understand you did some shopping.
I did, yeah. My wife is a retailer, Leslie Stratford. Big shout out to you. She is an incredible merchandiser, and the one thing we do a couple times a year together is go to some of the bigger gift shows. So a lot of people don't realize this, but retailers actually have to go shopping before you come shopping in our stores. So it is a big job. We spent 3 days, walked probably 20,000 steps a day, visiting vendors and looking for new stuff. So yeah, it was a ton of fun, but definitely feeling a little tired, today, and really good to be back.
Okay, now did she make you carry all the packages home too?
Yeah, fortunately they ship those, but it was actually it's one of my favorite things to do every year with Leslie, and believe me, I am not complaining. And speaking of complaining, I think that's something obviously that a lot of us are afraid of, right? Either hearing complaints or having complaints, etc. Right? So I think today we might be able to fix that, right?
Yeah, but we're gonna. You forgot a question. I'm gonna complain. You didn't do this right. You forgot to ask our audience where they're watching from.
Oh, I know. That's right. So let us know, folks. This is Ken's favorite question, where you're watching from. So obviously, I'm back in Canada, fresh off the heels of being in Scottsdale, Arizona, for another big shout out to Mike Stramaglio for ECS. But back in Canada today, where are you, Ken?
I am in my home office in Central Florida, not far from where I bet Greg is, because I'm thinking he's smart enough. Yep, there he goes. I knew he was in Florida. He's not going to leave Florida to go back to Michigan this time of year. It wouldn't make sense.
No. Well, and we've got someone else to ask where they're from. So why don't we bring in our guest?
Yes, let's bring in our guest.
Hi. Well, hello. How are you, Janelle?
I am great. I'm really great.
Yeah. Well, certainly.
Albuquerque,
New Mexico. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay, so here is a fun fact. I was born in Albuquerque.
You're kidding.
Nope. Albuquerque. And it was really funny. I went through 4th grade in Albuquerque, and then I graduated from Manzano High in Albuquerque.
Wow.
So there was a gap. I traveled around quite a bit, but yep, it's not very often I run into people from Albuquerque.
That's right. There's about 1 million people here.
I was actually down close to your neck of the woods when we were in Arizona. My wife and I actually took a couple of extra days and headed down to Tucson. So we were pretty close to the border. And one of the things that we were thinking about, we didn't have the time, but we were thinking about possibly heading into New Mexico. And the reason for that thinking is where we're from, there's plenty of snow here. And for those in Scottsdale, they had quite a bit of snow up in Sedona, which we usually visit. So we went south. So yeah, right. We could have seen you across the border.
Well, I've been living here now for about 5 years. And when I first moved here, and people would ask me where I had lived, and I had been in San Francisco, and they would say, "Oh, it's so beautiful there," and it is. And then I said, but then I moved to Las Vegas for 18 years. And they said, "Oh, it's so exciting there. And where do you live now?" And I say, "Albuquerque." And they say, "Isn't that hard to spell?"
Oh, that's great. Hey, listen, and for our audience, nobody knows you better than yourself, so maybe you can introduce yourself for our audience.
Yeah, okay. I am Janelle Barlow. I live in Albuquerque, as we just pointed out. I'm an author, a speaker, a consultant. Mostly I have been I'm really focusing my attention in the last couple of years just on complaint handling, because I used to cover a number of different subjects. I'm going virtual more and more, so I love the opportunity to be here with you virtually. I really like this medium better, actually, than I'd like being live. I flew 4.5 million miles on United Airlines, and I've decided that's enough.
Oh, wow.
Yes, indeed. So here I am, but I'm really fascinated about the subject of complaint handling, because it seems to me that if a company can get their complaint handling done right, they're going to have taken care of their customer service issues. That's really the bottom line there. So I'm trying to get more and more people to focus in on complaint handling rather than, this extraordinary service. I mean, you can do that, but I don't know how far that gets you anyplace.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the things that we always say is people, when you ask them their value proposition, they always say that, well, our service is second to none, right? And that's really what everyone says, right? But
yes, exactly.
I love this concept of, can we, solve complaints more thoroughly and faster than others?
Right. Because a complaint really is a statement of dissatisfaction. So if you can fix dissatisfaction, you have in effect given somebody really second to none service. So, it winds around that way. And I think actually the complaint handling is more important than we get sort of okay service most places that we go to. But I'll tell you, when you get great complaint handling, it sticks with you. And when you get bad complaint handling, you'll tell a million people about it. It's just...
Yeah. And it's interesting because in the service management class, I talked to them about, and I got this concept from a guy named Carl Sewell, who wrote the book, Customers for Life.
For Life, yes.
And I tell them that they should have a reverse lunch and learn where they invite some happy customers, but also some unhappy customers, the cranky customers, invite them in. And I tell them the question that you want to ask is, what don't you like about doing business with us? Let's be proactive to get them to draw out those complaints, because now we know what to fix.
Right. Exactly. But, you've got a question at the bottom of your screen. Most people hate complaints. And that is true. People don't like getting... Our natural inclination when we get a complaint, any kind of negative feedback, is to get defensive. That's very, very natural. And you have to really work at getting a mindset that says, no, I'm being given a gift. And that gift is part what you just referred to, Ken, which is it gives you a chance to figure out what you need to change to satisfy people. And that's what good service is satisfaction.
Yeah, and you can experience that in all levels of your professional life, right? And I know that one of the things that I really, appreciate, I work with a gentleman by the name of Joel Vaslow over at Tiger Paw Software. And whenever we get together once a week, right? And invariably there's going to be a complaint about something that I've written or, done or, could use some work. And he has this brilliant way of, kind of bringing it up, first couching it with, here's some things I loved about that blog. And here's maybe a couple of things, that you could change. So why don't we look at 3 alternatives? Let's work on them together to find out what we come up with. And it becomes almost like this complaint to a co-ownership of creation, right?
Right. That's right.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah. It's about problem solving is what it is. You look at the people who are on the Apple, I don't know if you use Apples, but and you call their customer care line, all those people really are they're problem solvers. But boy, do they have their communication skills down right. One of the things that the Apple people are taught to say, and you'll hear it if you deal with them to any degree at all, they say this, let me see what I can do. So, I've got this problem. Now, if they can fix it, they'll fix it right away. But if they can't, then let me see what I can do. And that is such a great statement.
I love it.
If you think about it, it's a statement of hope. I haven't promised anything, but it's a statement of hope. And
and it's also a statement of the fact that they care, right? Like, it's like, let me see what I can do, how I can help this situation.
Exactly, right. Instead of let me see what we can do, because the we doesn't exist. It's right. You and them are talking on the phone. But I had a wonderful example with Apple, if we've got just a moment that we can talk.
Of course.
I can tell this little story. I went into an Apple store with my computer, and I'm standing by the Genius Bar, and a little boy about 7 years old, maybe a little younger, came up with his mother and sister. Sister was about 13. And the little boy had his iPhone in his hand, and it was the whole screen was cracked. And he looked like he was on the verge of tears. And he said, I dropped my iPhone. That's all he said. And the guy who was standing there looked at him, and he picked it up, and he said, well, we don't really cover this kind of an accident, but let me see what I can do. That's what he said. And he walked into the little back room that they have behind the Genius Bar stand there. And he stood there. I don't know what he was doing back there, maybe having a cigarette. I don't know, but he was stood there. And then he came out with a box, a new iPhone box, and he gave it to the little boy, and he said, we don't normally do this, but you're so special. I want to give you this. And the little boy the sister was like, and then the man said, and we sell covers for these things so that when they get dropped, they don't break. Oh, that was wonderful. They walked away happy. And then up came a middle-aged man, and he had an iPhone in his hand, and it was, there were wires hanging out of this thing. And he said to the same guy, he said, I ran over it with my car. And the guy said, well, we don't usually cover our iPhones when you hit them with the car. He said, but let me see what I can do. And he walked to the back room again, stood there for a while. They must tell jokes back there, something to keep them occupied because they know what they're going to do. And then he came out with a new Apple box, and he said, I can't just give you a brand new one. He said, but I can take $100 off the purchase of your next Apple iPhone. And that guy was very happy to get that.
Sure.
Now, I think in both of these cases, what he did was he made customers for the rest of their lives. I think that's that kind of generosity, that kind of raising up the hope. And it wasn't Apple's fault that those machines were broken. Not at all. But
I think what's really neat there too, especially on that second story, is that they didn't give away the farm, right? They didn't, they're not just giving away phones every time somebody asked for one. They've given a discount to help make it easier for that person. They made an effort to do something for them, right? And I know my own experience, that's all I'm looking for sometimes too, right? If I know that something can't be fixed entirely, at least if there's an effort made to meet me somewhere in the middle.
Yes, right. Well, and those iPhones probably don't cost any more than $100 to make. In any case, most of it goes into marketing and everything else.
Yeah, the products themselves are actually pretty inexpensive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like OJ Coleman's comment here. We got it up. He says, and we all need to recognize that complaints can come in different fashions and forms. It's how you take action on each of those. What a great comment. That's
right. That's really great. And it's, what that speaks to, OJ, is that the person who's talking with you has to have a lot of emotional intelligence. That's really critical. And one of the most important emotional intelligence skills is listening. Because boy, our brain, once we get that complaint, our brain is starting to go, wow, 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 and coming up with a defense, all of these things that we might say. And you have to train your brain to have a go-to response. That's what I like to call it, a go-to. And the go-to response would be, how can I help this person? I don't care how they got into this situation. How can I help? And mostly what people want, well, I shouldn't say mostly, but what they want in great part is someone to listen to them, really hear what they're saying, and, acknowledge that the difficulty that they're in is not necessarily your company's fault, but you still want to help them.
And Ken, you've got a lot of experience here. I know that, for myself, I'm, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, I'm usually on the front end, right, in sales and marketing. So by the time it gets to complaint season, I'm kind of out of the picture already. But Ken, you live firmly in the world of complaint season, right? Because once those devices start to, break or have problems, or, something doesn't work the way a customer, thinks it should, right? Have you had any little aces up your sleeve over the years for how you've dealt with complaints?
Well, I have some things. Again, these are things that I teach to the service managers because they're in the role that gets these calls, and it's so important that not only do they learn it, but their technicians learn it. And and the first thing I talk to them about is active listening. In other words, when somebody calls up and they're upset, tell them, listen, I want to help, but so I can understand what's going on, tell me what's happening. And then let that person vent, and don't get offended. I love what you said about don't build your defenses. It's not time for shields up. It is time for us to listen and to make notes. Mm-hmm. And then I teach them they should go back and restate what they heard and ask them if that's right. Yeah. And then I love this question, and I tell them to say this question until the customer can't come up with anything. And that is, and what else?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we can try to get that customer completely, let them get rid of all the upset they have. And then we can start to assimilate, okay, what is? And then one of the other things that I tell them is what can I ask the customer? What can I do to make this right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because again, once we get the customer to start talking to us and letting us know these things, then we can start to build a solution. The front end of it is A, I care as a person. B, the second part of it is kind of, as a company, we want to make it right for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that a good approach?
I think it's an excellent approach. And I have to say that sometimes, is there anything else? What's really happened was that they talked with a person before you and maybe a person before them, and they got handled poorly there. And now they're sitting with their hostility. And that's what, and they may say, well, it was a matter of fact, the treatment that I got from your coworkers was just awful. That's what's really bothering them. And that's why you're hearing them with a charge in their voice. It's nothing to do with you. And now they're perhaps even in the position of exaggerating.
Hey, do you guys mind if I share a funny story about complaints?
Go ahead.
This is one that actually happened to me. My wife and I were fans of Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? And, of course, you get all your stuff, and we brought it home, and my wife was looking at the best before dates, and she looked at one and said, "Oh no, this one's expired." I said, "Oh, that's terrible. Let's just put that aside. We'll, deal with it when next time we go in." And then she looked at another one and she said, "This one's expired too." And by the time she looked at all of the, the things that we had in the packages, other than the chicken, they were all, in her mind, expired. So what did I do? I was ready to complain. I packaged them all up, went down to the KFC, and I did it so dramatically. I put one container on the counter and said, "Look, I get it. Sometimes you can make a mistake, right? So if there's one expired item, anyone can make that mistake." I put the second container on the counter. I said, "But 2 items expired? Now I got to start thinking you're not doing something right." And I put the third container. There's customers behind me, by the way, right? Waiting. 3 items. Now I really got to ask what kind of business you're running here, right? And I wanted a refund. And he was mortified. He was like, "Oh, I am so sorry," and then he looked at the stuff and he said, "Oh, sir," he goes, "Do you know what day it is today?" I said, "No, why?" He goes, "Well, the expiry dates for these are actually a week from now." And I gathered up my little things and put them back in the bag and said, "I am so sorry." But you know what he did for me anyway? He gave me a coupon for $20. Right? Like, it was unbelievable. That was totally my fault. And talk about a masterclass in dealing with a complaint patient. And then I still walked away with something, even though it was entirely my own fault. So.
And then you went home and yelled at your wife.
Oh no, we laughed. We were in tears. We were belly rolling when I told her what happened.
That's a great story. I would love to see that on video.
Right. Anyways, I had to share that because it was. We tell that story when you have to be careful sometimes about when you're complaining to make sure that you have all your facts.
Oh yes, I've complained to the airlines about a ticket when we used to have paper tickets.
Oh right.
Complained about the wrong date, and I was in the airport in the wrong times.
Right. It happens.
Yes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's not just the customers, though. It's also we are mistake prone. That's the nature of living in today's world.
Yeah, I think so. With so many complicated systems and different things.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about some of the steps, but you want to walk through some of the steps that you outlined and how we can turn these into a gift? Because I agree, even though in our LinkedIn post today I disparage that, but I love your philosophy, love your thought process. So you want to walk us through what you would say the good steps are, the best way to do this?
Yeah. Well, if you're given a gift, let's say it's your birthday and you're given a gift and they hand it to you and you can see right away, this is not the right gift for you. You don't like it, whatever. You're not going to complain about that gift at that moment. You may be thinking, how can I re-gift this to somebody else? But you're not going to complain about it. You would just say, "Oh, thank you. I really appreciate your thoughtfulness. This is wonderful." And whatever you would say, you might go extreme. "This is the best gift ever." Or it may be that you just, "Well, thank you. I really appreciate it." That's when you receive a gift. Now, if we think of complaints as gifts, then maybe the first thing that we should be saying to the customer is not, "I'm sorry." And that one gets said a lot. You don't even know what you're sorry about, but you say, "I'm sorry." But instead to say, "Oh my gosh, thank you. That shouldn't have happened. We're a better company than that. That should not have happened. And then let me say, and it's a good idea not to get too scripted. You want to have a variety of ways of saying that. But thank you so much for letting me know. I wouldn't have known if you hadn't told me. And that's the truth. You wouldn't have, probably. And then after you've established a rapport, because that's what that does, it creates a relationship. We're going to help each other. Then you can start to ask questions to find out what happened. You want to get as much information as you possibly can. And you don't want to just take their first statement for it. I like the story that you told about, you keep asking, is there anything more? Was there anything else? You want to get that information. And once you've got all of that, you've repeated it back so that they understand what's going on. Then you come to the third step. First thing you do is you adopt the mindset, which is, thank you. I'm being given a gift, even if it's crappy, even if the person is angry I'm getting a gift. And then you get yourself into that mindset. And then you want to find out what happened. Now, just say one thing. There have been times when people have told me as complaint handlers that they said thank you to somebody. Oh, that's so great that you called to tell us about this. And you can hear the clunk, and the person fell off their chair. They were so surprised to get that kind of a reaction. So I don't think I'm sorry creates that reaction. I just don't. So now you've thanked them, and now you've found out what's happened. And then the third step is that you got to go find out how you can fix this. You can fix it for the individual, but you also want to fix it inside the whole company, so that the next time somebody has the same situation, they won't run into this again. It'll be fixed. Hopefully it'll be fixed.
Yeah, I love this idea of it being a gift.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this idea that they're giving us something that's actually quite good, right?
Yes.
If it helps us, if we're willing to take the actions to, actually act on the things that they're gifting us.
Right. But, if somebody comes up and they are clearly in if I had a gun, I'd shoot you kind of mood, and that is a possibility. You want to protect yourself as well. But most people are nervous, they're anxious, or they've got an edge on them when they complain. They're never in their normal conversational tone. And by thanking somebody, you get them into a conversational set where the two of you are literally talking, one human being to another human being. And that's a perfect condition under which to solve complaints, to solve these issues. It is so psychological, because you don't even have to give the customer necessarily what they've asked for. I bought a new car and the tire got a hole in it. I'd like a new car. Well, you're not going to get a new car. That's not going to happen. But there's a few other things. Yeah, darn it. But there's a few other things that we can. There's a few other things that we can do. But it's mostly what you can do is you can give them the feeling of satisfaction that somebody heard them, because there's a good chance nobody else wants to listen to their tale of woe. So that's your job.
Yeah, and I think it's a cultural thing too, right? And I know it really got me to thinking about when I look at these complaints as a gift. I'm the president for the Managed Print Service Association today, and have it's proudly my second term. And of course, the board meeting, we get together, once a month to talk about items at hand and everything else. And of course, some of those invariably are complaints that have either come from members or, members of the board themselves. But I think the R word is really important there, which is the level of respect that we all have for each other. Mm-hmm. Right? That it's always a good activity when we move through those things. And, right. And the reason I say it's cultural is because my wife's also a retailer, and I can tell you that some of the local BIAs don't always share that, kind of respect when they're bringing complaints into the sessions. And because I belong to two very different types of bodies that both complain, one of them I really enjoy the complaints, and the other one I don't. It really does sound like a cultural thing. Is that fair?
Well, yes, that's part of it. I mean, some people speak louder, some people speak faster. There's all these emotions that are being conveyed through the speaking. And if we understand, that's just somebody trying to tell us something. And if you think about you're establishing rapport, what you want to do is to get into a position where you can have a human to human, person to person exchange of information. And that's what rapport is. Rapport is really critical in all of this. And so some of these people walk in and immediately they've got a sign in their forehead that says, I'm going to be nasty. And you have to be able to work around that, because as a human, most of us will, we bite into that and hold, yeah. And then there's no way you're going to even discuss the issue at that point. You're just going to have a fight.
Yeah, what's that expression? Don't mess with the bull unless you want the horns, right? And it's like, well, it's actually a really bad expression, because if you think about it, like you said, we come conditioned to be so reactive to those complaints, right?
Right.
So I like that idea of rapport.
Right. And also, I think that if you wanted to, Ken, that was
yeah. Sometimes I have to put West in the green room. I'm trying to, to avoid that today, but it's kind of like his timeout corner. We make him go away. Okay. But I think part of it is a cultural aspect of the company that needs to be modified. And one of the things that, I go back to that book. I love Customers for Life, because it basically throws out the premise that you think about a customer as what will they spend on your products or services over the course of a lifetime, and then treat them that way, even if they walk in to get a pencil.
That's right.
That's okay. Treat them like they're a $10,000 or $100,000 company. That's what he did with his luxury car dealership, is thought about how much do they buy over the course of a lifetime if they're buying luxury cars. Mm-hmm. And if they came in for a $19 oil change, they got treated like a $200,000 customer. Yes. And when you treat people like that at every level of the organization, yes, that is such an important piece of it.
Yeah, that's right. What did you got rid of him and got him back? Yeah. Even somebody like, take McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, how much do you spend in an average order there, and how often do you go there? And so I always tell people, imagine you've got a yellow Post-it on the customer's forehead, and it would sort of like be, what does this, and this is true especially for small ticket items, is what is this person spending over the course of a lifetime? Dry cleaners, for example. How much money does a person spend in a dry cleaning establishment? And the answer is remarkably a lot of money. A lot. Yeah. I mean, I picked up my dry cleaning the other day. It was like $80 for the dry cleaning. Now, maybe if I even go just once a month, that's still close to $1,000 a year in the course of my lifetime. We're talking a lot of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And you treat that customer with a lot of care.
Yeah. Well, that's great. We are coming down we've got about 3 minutes left. So Ken, I'll let you continue, but just to be conscious of where we are for time.
Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, and it's interesting, as you mentioned low ticket items. So many times, even let's go back to West's story about the $20 gift certificate. Okay, so that's worth $20 retail. The cost to the company is very minuscule. And so many times we can make customers happy with something that costs very little, and I talk about it with, and I encourage my service managers to delegate down the authority to do stuff like that. You got a customer that's had a bunch of paper jamming, give them a ream of paper.
Yeah.
You've done something to make credit back the copies. Those kinds of things cost the company almost nothing, but they can have huge value in public relations and in customer satisfaction.
Right. Especially when you think about how much money it costs to get that customer in the first place. I've done a lot of work with cruise lines, and they will spend half of the ticket price just to get that customer into on their cruise. Imagine that, because those are thousands of dollars for those cruises, and half of it is going to just get them. And you want to be mindful of that.
Yeah, Ken knows a thing or two about cruising, don't you?
I do. And my other side hustle is I do videos about accessible travel, and I spend a lot of time on cruise lines.
Well, I tell you that it's wonderful. It's something that they're offering to everybody. I love cruising myself. I worked with Viking Rivers and Viking Oceans cruises, and I'll put in a plug for them. They are wonderful, truly wonderful. And we studied complaint handling with them. It's
well, that's great. And listen, we are at that time now, and Janelle, we can't thank you enough for joining us and I have absolutely zero complaints about this live stream today. So thank you very much.
Okay.
And how can people get in touch with you?
Well, the webpage is www.acomplaintisagift. If you forget to add the A in there, complaint is a gift, that'll get you there as well. And then my direct email is Janelle@janellebarlow.com. And I do respond to my emails. I do get them out to you. So we're trying to constantly putting in new information on the Complaint is a Gift website. So it's a fun place to visit just to see everything that is there.
Yeah, and a lot of our audience is tuning in from LinkedIn as well. So for those folks that are there, obviously you can reach Janelle on LinkedIn as well.
Right. Good.
Well, I can't thank you enough. And remember, everybody, every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. And as I like to say, keep learning. And Ken, what else?
We want them to keep leveling up. And next week we have Dr. Kimberly Jansen. She's going to be on. She's going to talk about the mistakes people make when they make leaders. And it's something that I talk a lot about with my service managers, because too often it's bad decisions in that process create havoc.
Mm-hmm.
Well, looking forward to that. All right. See you, everybody.
Okay.